Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live and Raw. I'm Wes Kowalczyk. I'm your host for tonight, hostess with the mostest, as an old friend of mine used to say. I want to share some stuff with you tonight for this podcast. It kind of adds to last week's around mindset. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about the mind game of sales or sales mindset. And I want to jump in and kind of help you guys as business owners and high-performing professionals figure out what it is that you need to do to get your mind in the space where it is going to help you get to the next level. All right, so let's jump in there. So one of the first big things, how many of you guys like sales? I know I did. I said that as well. I hated sales, but ever since I could remember, I've been in sales. Right from my paper route when I was 10 years old in Calgary, all the way through to getting married twice, getting divorced. Bunch of girlfriends, all that other cool and good stuff. And then, in the midst of all that, 7-8 businesses later, I'm a salesman, pure and simple. And trust me, no one will sell your business like you can. No one has the heart, no one has the desire, no one has the passion to sell your business like you do. So come and join with me for the next few minutes as we talk about sales mindset. So let's jump in there. So if you're not into the habit of reading to get your mind in the right space, I highly recommend you start picking up some books. There's people out there that say that, we are the sum of the 5 people we hang around with and the books we read. That is who we become. And so since early 90s, I've been reading books. The first one I read was Norman Vincent Peale, Think and Grow Rich. It was a challenge. I had to rip 4 pages out of the book at a time to read it. I put them in my lunchbox, took them to work, and I devoured those 4 pages over and over and over until it started to sink in what that was trying to tell me. But today now, I'm reading all kinds of books. One of the things that I want to get you to start thinking about is your mindset. So I want you to start looking at what books can you read that will help you in your mindset, prepare your mindset. Last week I talked about affirmations. I talked about being positive, right? So let's start with those age-old favorites. Think and Grow Rich. Got to read that book for sure, right? Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. An amazing book. Chet Holmes. Any books by Chet Holmes? There's one of his most famous books, The Ultimate Salesman, is a good one. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other books I'd read that I'd recommend, and I can't think of it right off the top of my head. But in working with your mindset, because I'm an alcoholic, I need to really understand how my brain works, and the fact that our habits have created neural pathways or neural highways in our brains that are long, well-used super highways. And if those are bad behaviors, what is so cool about some of the books I've recently read is that our brain has what we call neuroplasticity, which allows our brains to be able to take those old neural pathways that we no longer use, like the addiction and alcoholism one in my brain, and it allows us to pull those neural pathways apart and repurpose or what's the word I'm looking for? Recycle, if you will, all those old neurons and put them to use in a new neural pathway. So every time we have a new thought, every time we have a new emotion, it creates a chemical reaction in our brains. That chemical reaction creates a new neural pathway. Reading Joe Dispenza's book on, the title of the book was Evolve Your Brain. He talks at length about how that happens in your brain, and I don't even want to try to go through that process because I know I'd butcher it tonight. But I want you to think about, if you get your mind right as you go into a sales process, right? If you're thinking about, how much money you owe, you're going to be late with payroll this week, you need to get this sale, all those things that you need to have. If you walk into the sale with that and you go through the sale, and you might think it's a great process, you're having a great conversation, great rapport, but because you've got that need hanging on to the sale, it's probably not going to happen for you, right? I'll probably tell you 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, they will just, whoever is in the meeting with you will pick up on your need to make that sale happen, and they'll go, nope, done, we don't want it, right? It'll trigger their fight or flight reflex in their brain. So what I want you to think about is when you go into that meeting, I want you to think about taking the need out of your psyche for that meeting, which means is take the need to get the sale. Just leave it out of the meeting. And when you walk into that meeting, go in there with the intent that you're going to provide that prospect with you're going to do a good deep dive needs analysis, identify what his pain points are, and I'll touch on the pain points in a bit here. But dig in there, find out what all those things are that are causing him the biggest pain, and then work your way into how your product or your service can provide that solution that he's looking for, and then not have any need to make that sale attached to it. Educate them. Help them make the decision that buying something from you is the right thing. If you're needy in that space, it'll come across as you're needy and it'll come across as you're salesy, and they won't buy it, right? So let's go back and touch on the pain points briefly. One of the things that I see salesmen make the biggest mistake with all the time is when they start doing their needs assessment or needs analysis. No, I'm tongue-tied tonight. I don't know what it is. The exciting part is, like, we're told dig in, find the pain. And so as soon as they start digging in, they find their prospect's pain. They go, oh, yeah, okay. And then they automatically jump to the solution. And so I want you to picture in your mind, though, don't stop there. If you get the first one, that's your cue to keep digging. And this is where active listening and good questions really come into play. Because what you've found is you found the tip of the iceberg. You know, you guys can picture an iceberg. Hang on, I'll get a picture here somewhere. Okay, I'm back. Picture an iceberg. I don't know if you can see that. Nice big iceberg. See how big that monster is? That's the tip. How much ice is underneath that iceberg? 10% is all we see. 90% is under the water. Like, that iceberg's like bigger than my hand. And what is so unique about finding out your needs analysis is when you start digging in deep and you get that first pain point, and you go, well, that's pretty interesting. Can you tell me more about that? And it allows you to dig in deeper to identify what some of the underlying causes of that pain are. The deeper you dig and the more you listen, and you get the prospect to essentially spill their guts on you. I mean, if you're really good at questioning, you would get them to tell everything about them. And if you can get them to tell what's under the water, all that stuff that's way down deep, that's the real pain that they're suffering. And if you can identify in that pain that your product or your service will solve that, it's a no-brainer. You'll be able to close the sale. It becomes the mindset. But you need to have that process, your sales process in place to be able to go through that with the right mindset. Now, it might seem like I'm jumping around here a little bit, and I might be, and I apologize. It is live and raw. So in your process, once you've identified the pain, what is the next step, right? So the next step is say, hey, look, how, and this is what I do, is how important is it to you to get rid of that pain? Because most human beings, I'm going to say 90% of us, would rather move from pain, right, than go towards pleasure. We'd rather get out of the pain than move to the pleasure. And so if you can identify that pain, your sales process will be a whole lot simpler because you've been able to identify it. Then you ask that question, how much is it worth to you, or what would it be worth to you to help you solve that, get out of that pain problem, whatever it is. And if you can help your client identify that pain and help them identify how much it would be worth to them to get out of that, what they'd be willing to do to get out of that pain, then you can simply slide in with your solution and say, hey, here's my solution right here, boom, done. And then all you have to do is say, would you like me to help with that? And that's your close. Then you shut up. So that's a mind game of sales. After you drop your pitch, right, which is, do you want help with that? That's my close, my pitch. Do you want me to help you with that? You shut up, and then you let them speak. You let them tell you what they want, right? Don't make any assumptions. Leave the assumptions at the door. Be impeccable with your word, and then let them speak. And then whatever they say, you have to go in and do the objections. But if you've done a good job in your sales process, there shouldn't be very many objections. If you're getting, well, I need to talk it over with my wife or my husband. If you're getting that, you didn't do a very good job at the front end of your sales process of pre-qualifying them and making sure that they had everything in place to get through there. Now, there's a process to follow. There's a 5-step process, right? And I will talk about that in another video. But what I wanted to share with you is really just a mindset tonight. Next podcast will be about the process, the 5 steps that you should be doing before you get actually even into a sale. So to make sure that you pre-qualify your prospects, right? And if you guys aren't pre-qualifying, figure out what you got to do to pre-qualify, or tune in next week and I'll share with you how to pre-qualify. If you can't wait till next week, give me a call, shoot me a text, shoot me an email off the podcast, and I'll be glad to sit down and have a chat with you about what you could do in your business. But let's go back to the mindset, because mindset is super critical. Henry Ford said, I can't even remember what he said now. If you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, that's insanity. And so sometimes in our minds, we get into that same space where we're thinking we're doing something different, but at the end result, it's the exact same thing we're doing over and over, same thing, and we're getting the same results. So what we have to do is change our perception, change our approach, change our mindset to look at how we can do this. Sales is a relatively simple process if you have the right mindset. Break it down and use a tool to help you go through that process, and then replicate it, do the same thing every single time. And that way you can start to track and measure and use KPIs in your sales process, so you can identify areas where it's maybe not working or is broken, right? So if we think about number of leads, how many closed, what's your closure rate? How many closed sales have you got out of those leads? And I'm not talking, every year. I'm talking, how many leads do you have incoming every week? How many sales do you close? What's your gross profit on every project that you're doing, right? If you're not doing post project debriefs, where you go in and you do an analysis to determine your profitability on every project at the end of it, you need to start doing that, because it's powerful. When you start measuring all those things that go together, you'll be able to see how you bid better going forward, how you get to quote your jobs better going forward. So following that process is going to allow you guys to get better at it, but it's all here in your mindset. Approaching it from what do I need to do to help my client? What is the ultimate goal? And out of any sales process, the whole idea with the beginning of the process is to book the next meeting. So for example, I used to do a lot of cold calls. The purpose of the phone call was to book the meeting. The purpose of the meeting was to book the next meeting, right? To introduce yourself, to build a relationship, and then book the next meeting. However many calls that is, however many meetings that takes to get you to where you need to go, the purpose is to keep booking a meeting so you can get in with the client and then sell him ultimately on your stuff. It's about relationship building. So you need to have that time to build a relationship with him and make it work. I'm going to tell you about my first big sale I had when I was running my oilfield service business. And this is clearly about building relationships. I met with a construction manager. We had lunch at the Sheraton in Calgary and spent 55 minutes talking about stuff that we both enjoyed doing. It's a little bit about our history, a little bit about our future. And when we got done with the meeting and done with our lunch, he goes, "Oh, I guess we should talk business. So what do you do?" In 5 minutes, told them what I did, and they hired me on the spot. Shell became one of our bigger clients. We enjoyed working with Shell for quite some time. And then we decided that it wasn't profitable for us to continue working for Shell after the Royal Dutch thing bought them out and all this stuff. Big, long story. But they were a good client at one point. And what I'm trying to get across with that story, though, is had I not built a relationship with that guy, I would not have been able to close that sale, right? It was my first big sale, first big contract. I mean, over the years, I think we probably earned close to $4 million or more with Shell over a period of years in some of the work that we were doing. And so it was really good, that one meeting, how I was able to close it. I learned a valuable lesson there. Relationships, your mindset. Don't go in trying to get the sale. Go in trying to build a relationship. So I hope that helped you guys out tonight. I'm just, like I said, podcast number 2, still a little rough, still a little raw. And I know it's only going to get better from here. So keep tuning in. I know the information that's in my head is going to get out through these podcasts, and it's going to get into your guys' hands, and you will start to go, yeah, the stuff he's saying is making sense, right? So think about what I talked about tonight, your mindset. Think about picking up and reading some books, some good books, right? Just search the internet. There's lots out there on sales, some really good books about what you need to do to build and get relationship sales happening in your business. And if you've got the right mindset going in, the second thing you need to do is develop your process. Write out what your sales process is from start to finish, from picking up the phone call to booking the meeting, what you're going to talk about in the meeting, booking the next meeting, and then actually getting to the end of the sales call. For contractors, a lot of times you got calls coming in from Homestars or from the internet. Part of your sales process starts with, that first person picking up the phone and saying, hi, XYZ Contracting. That person there needs to be trained in what to say on the phone so that she or he is always very personable, always willing to build a relationship, and always willing to help the customer, right? And then go through what that process will be once they answer the phone. How do they solve that caller's needs so that they can move to the next stage, right? And the next stage should, at the end, ultimately end up with the contractor going out to site to bid on the project or quote on the project. But by the time he gets there or she gets there, the sale should almost be closed. You shouldn't have any tire kickers. And that's because in that first phone call, there should be a lot of pre-qualification answers in there, finding out about budget, about terms, about what their biggest problem is. And then you remember when I talked about the iceberg, digging deep? Well, that's where it needs to happen, is right there. You can solve a lot of problems about you driving out to site and doing a bid and then just getting, wasting your time, really 2 hours of your day because you lost that bid because you didn't pre-qualify them on the phone first, right? So think about that. If you guys have any questions, reach out, connect with me, and I will be more than willing to have a chat with you and help you out in figuring out what your sales process is start to finish. And at the end of the sales process, after you've done the quote, make sure you get your deposit and a contract signed. Because if you're not getting paid and you're not getting a contract signed, you're leaving yourself out in the open to get pooched really bad. So I'll leave that with you guys tonight. It's been good. Having a lot of fun, enjoying this. I hope you guys get some out of this because I'm going to keep giving it to you. And, at some point, you'll get some of this 30 years of stuff in my brain out on the camera, and you guys can start to pick up and learn from it and start to grow your guys' construction businesses. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care. And if you haven't, subscribe, click the button below, subscribe, and tell your friends about it as well. Talk to you soon.